Welcome back. We continue to pay tribute to the life of Winnie Madikizela-Mandela. Let's take you live now to Brandfort in the Free State. That's where eNCA reporter Michael Appel is. He is outside the home where Mama Winnie was banished for several years, for 8 years in fact. Michael, it's a place of such sad memories for the Mandela family, for Winnie Madikizela-Mandela herself as well, even more so because that important place in the history of the country and in her life has in fact not been kept just in terms of preserving the memory of what it represents.
Yeah, that's right, Michelle. It's a very ugly part of a very important story that Winnie Mandela very tragically had to go through. Banished here in 1977, spent 8 years under effective house arrest, banished from everybody she loved and everybody she knew to this little spot of earth called Brandfort, really putting it on the map. And just behind me is Unit 805, House 805, where she stayed in. It's coupled together with 803, and last year I stumbled upon this building while we were doing a different story. We heard that there was this Winnie Mandela Museum here in Brandfort. We wanted to come check it out for ourselves. It's a very important part of a very difficult story for Mama Winnie, and we arrived and we're just going to listen into a package looking at the history, just to give our viewers a history of the amount of money that went into the Winnie Mandela Museum and what it looked like then, and unfortunately what it still looks like now. Let's listen in. Struggle icon Winnie Madikizela-Mandela was banished by the apartheid government to the small dusty town of Brandfort in the Free State. Almost exactly 40 years later, the home she lived in for 9 years is a far cry from a renovated museum that it should have been turned into more than 10 years ago. In 2005, the BBC reports no less than 1.6 million rand is set aside for the restoration that would be complete within a year. This reports the Free State government has spent 671,000 rand on phase 1 of 3 of the renovation. In July 2012, it's reported that the Free State government, led by Premier Ace Magashule, has set aside 3 million rand for the project. It's confirmed to eNCA that another 2.5 million rand tender goes out in early 2013. A state-owned enterprise, the Independent Development Trust in the Free State, the implementing agent for a 2012 and 2013 tender at least, says it's unable to comment on why the project is not progressing. Questions are directed to the National Arts and Culture Department. The Free State Arts and Culture Unit also directs all questions up the line. Asked about the history and fund allocation of the project, the National Arts and Culture Department's response was simply to say that in the 2011-2012 financial year, the IDT received 1.85 million rand. The project eventually stopped in November 2016 because the IDT did not pay contractors. The DA's constituency head in the Masilonyana area says the party is aware of allegations of tender irregularities.
The matter has also been taken up on occasion in the Free State Legislature, but the answer and the promise is always the same. There is money budgeted for the project and it is underway, but nothing happens.
The DA will soon be submitting written questions regarding the project to the Free State Arts and Culture MEC. Michael Appel, Johannesburg.
Michael, just around 24 hours or so, or coming up for 24 hours or so, since the announcement of the death of Mama Winnie, what is the situation like in Brandfort this morning?
Yeah, it's very slowly the crowds are starting to gather here. There are young and old all coming here that are gathering around her old house here in Brandfort. So a little bit later today we're hoping to speak to
one of Mama Winnie's neighbors back in the late 70s, and we're also going to speak to some of the community heads in Masilonyana area that were here at that very difficult time when she was here, hounded by the apartheid police and state security. She was watched 24/7 to see who was visiting here. As I said, effectively under house arrest, so a very difficult 8 years for her, and a very tragic part of this important story that she played in our country's history in the fight against apartheid. And we're going to see if we can get some of the memories, if we just put what on the face of it appears to be outright looting of the money that should have gone to this project since at least 2005. As that package says, money has been pledged to it, and it's become a continual cycle of money going into it and then money disappearing. So a lot of unanswered questions there, but we'll be looking to just shine a spotlight on some of those that knew Mama Winnie back in the 70s here. We'll be looking to chat to them a little bit later.
Michael, before we let you go, I mean, you've spent some time in Brantford as you covered the story of her home there, what was effectively her home for 8 years back in the 70s. In your experience, just being in that community, do people realize, even given the fact that that house has been left to disintegrate effectively, do people realize what it represents in the country's history?
Certainly, there's a significant aura about the place, and a lot of the locals that I've spoken to in the past have said that they cannot wait for this to be turned into an effective museum, as they want to be able to put that part of history on the map. They want to be able to speak about the history, to speak about Mama Winnie in that time here, and one of the best ways to do that is to commemorate and remember those times, and the best way is to turn this into a proper functioning, effective museum, so that the community can tell that story themselves, and that there is an upliftment in this community. Take something that was a terrible part of our history and turn it into something a little bit better, an uplifting story for this community, to be able to use it as a tourism landmark, to be able to bring crowds in there, to be able to tell Mama Winnie's story during those years. That hasn't happened, so a lot of the locals here are just very disappointed with the way that it's unfolded since 2005, and really just hopeful that this project is going to get underway at some stage.
Yeah, absolutely, that is the hope. Well, thanks very much for that. eNCA reporter Michael Appel joining us live there from Brantford. That is the home where Mama Winnie was banished to by the apartheid government in the 1970s. She proceeded to spend almost 8 years living in that home. Michael is there live. He'll continue to update us throughout the day as that story continues to unfold.